We have the proximity, we are in the middle of Asia and the US. Right. We have Africa, which is certainly a very interesting potentially market long term. So we have a good knowledge of that. So for me, there is no odd reasons why Europe should not be in the race. So OVHcloud is one of the top 10 worldwide cloud provider in the world. Unfortunately, we are the only European. We might discuss that a little bit later. And so our mission is to provide cloud services to digital native customers or to corporate or partners. And what are cloud services? If you're not familiar with it, it's a way to consume IT services as demand. So rather to buy your servers, to buy your license, to buy anything you need to develop your own applications or to be able to monitor your own applications. In fact, you buy services through bare metal cloud, private cloud, public cloud. We use a lot of type of things. And we are today positioned as one of the top 10 in the world. We are mainly European, of course, but now we have operations in North America, and we bought a company 2 years ago called OVHcloud, which was the cloud subsidiary of VMware. So we have a strong presence also in the US, where we have 2 data centers. And since 3 years now, we are based in Asia, where we have data centers in Sydney, and we have a data center in Singapore. And I was very happy to visit Singapore with the team here because we are expanding in Asia.
Fantastic. Well, you're a very special company, right? Because you're one of the rare French unicorns.
Yeah, unfortunately we are rare. It will be much better that we were much more the companies able to be to reach this size. We are very proud of that. But Octave started this company. He's a founder and he has a vision, and he was able to scale fast and quickly. And we try to maintain a leadership, which is tough in this market.
Right, very competitive.
Very extremely competitive. We are facing American and Chinese competitions, big names, you know them.
Right, yeah.
And they have huge amount of money. So we are convinced that the only way to continue to grow fast in this segment is to innovate, to be different, and also to stick to our values, which are European values, our DNA, freedom, and capacity to keep to guarantee to the customer that he has the freedom choice.
Fantastic, that's very interesting. Now, what we're here to talk about is about this question of French European unicorns, right? Because as a lot of our listeners know, and we've been having many conversations on this topic, President Macron has a very strong ambition for France for 2025. He'd like there to be 25 French tech unicorns. There's a strong ambition for Europe as a whole to position ourselves as a tech leader on the global market. Yet up until today, there aren't that many. No. Could I ask you to share your thoughts on why that's the case?
It's a very vast question because I think there are many reasons why. We are very proud to be in the Next 40 initiative, the government, so we are a part of this I would say next wave of not startup, because we're not anymore a startup. We are really beyond that.
Right.
I think for me I would try to very oversimplify what I do believe are the hard reasons why there is no major European big players and the soft reasons.
Okay.
But I will start with the hard reasons because we have a tendency to do a sort of psychological reasons why.
A little bit, right?
Yeah. And so for me there are some hard reasons. And for me the first one is definitely, that's why I do believe it's a European issue, it's not a French issue, because it's the same. We don't have big Germany except SAP. Yeah. We don't have this even UK. No, in the tech, it's a European issue. It's not a French issue. I think first the market. We have a fragmented market with different regulations. When you're in fintech and you want to address the urban market, how do you do easily? It's not easy. If you are a health company, it's the same. While you're in US or in China, you have immediately a 300 million or 1 billion customers market. Yeah. So I think there is a market which is a hot issue. The language, fragmented language, it creates a little bit tougher to scale, especially at the beginning, because to have different languages, you need to have different websites, you need to have different languages, and it creates not complexity, but sometimes cost and sometimes a little bit of hurdles to be able to scale. Third one, I think it's financing. I think it's starting to be solved.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think all the initiatives, especially with the last initiative of the government, with the new fund they are going to push for the scale-up, is something which is really moving. But it's clear that 15 years ago, 10 years ago, the venture capital in Europe was much less sophisticated than what you have in the US.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so it was less helpful for the startups or even for the scale-up. And many, in fact, a very good startup, French startup or even European startup, at the end had a cash issue, and so they have to, I would say, be able to raise money. And the only way they have is to go back to the US.
Yes, to go to this other market.
Right? So I think it's changing, but I think it has been and had been a problem in the past. And I think also, which is maybe what I put in the hard, maybe it's a transition to the soft reason, is I think the ecosystem between the public research, the private research, the universities, the public money, and also the ecosystem, surprisingly in US is very strong. It is very strong. They help each other, even so they are competitive.
Yeah.
In China, it's planified, so it's a plan. It's a 5 years plan, so it's organized. But in US, it seems disorganized. But in reality, there is despite the fact there are a strong competition between all the players, there is a solidarity to accelerate the emergence of leaders. In Europe, we don't have that.
Yeah.
They are not interconnection. It's only isolated, fragmented. And it goes back to the mindset, which is mainly mentioned by many, I would say, people, but about the fact that we are too technical, not sales, marketing oriented enough, that we are not business driven, that we are sometimes more idealistic. I think it's a reality. Even so, Dutch mentality is a little bit different from the French mentality, which is even very different from the Italian mentality and culture. So I will be a little bit more prudent. I think it's a reality because in Europe, certainly we are less business oriented than in the US. We are certainly much more technical, idealistic sometimes. However, I'm very optimistic long term. I do believe that if there is the consciousness that today we have everything to succeed in Europe, why not?
Why not? Well, before unpacking those reasons for your optimism and getting into some of the soft reasons that you mentioned earlier, I think on these hard reasons, like you mentioned that the VC ecosystem has really evolved over the last 5 years. That was at least my impression when I was an entrepreneur in France, that it was very local, so the people had a hard time looking outside of their own ecosystem. It wasn't really pan-European that much, which I think is emerging, which has been emerging over the last couple of years. Could you qualify this difference in types of VC money available now that wasn't, or at least this dynamism that you described that wasn't available even like 5 years ago?
I think there are three axes. The first, the size of the VC.
The size,
the pure.
Yeah, just the size.
Just size. I mean, the money. So the A series was a few hundred K, or when it was a few million, it was really something which was unbelievable. And now that we see the A series are now dozens of millions, if not more. Yeah. So the size. The second thing is that it's good to give money, but you need to give advice. You need to give ways, opportunities, ecosystems. It's not only a question of money. Otherwise, it would be easy.
It would be easy.
Yeah, it would be easy or easy. It would be easier, but it's not the case because you need to have the right team, the right people. We know that talent is a key issue for scaling, and so venture, they have a role. They are not the only one, but they need to help all the startups and scale up to be able to have this capacity to be helped and to be sometimes advised to continue to grow, to expand internationally. It's a challenge. It's a challenge in terms of people. It's a challenge in terms of IT systems. It's a challenge in terms of go-to-market approach. You need to tailor, because if you want to address the Dutch market and the
Right,
French market, in our business, for example, it's not the same players, it's not the same customers. So to do that by sharing all these experience coming from venture, which have the capacity to have a pan-European vision,
Exactly,
I think it's very helpful. And the third one, I think, which is for me very important, is preparing the next step. Venture, they have to exit at one point.
Yeah.
Because if you don't exit, you are not a good venture. So you know what is the next step. And it gives long-term visibility. Because when you're a startup, you have a long-term vision, but you have a very short-minded operation mode, because you need to survive next day. And so how to do that? And I think, again, the venture, I think, have gained in Europe. I know a lot of venture in Europe. They gained a lot of maturity to help the startups to grow. And I'm also very happy that the French government decided to put nearly $500,000 to help the scale-up, because there is a second phase, which is, okay, I create a concept, I create a product, I started in France, it's okay, or another country, I extended to Belgium, to Dutch, to Germany. Now, what's next? And to do so, you need to do B series or C series and things like this. And this is another area. And I think also we need to help the startups to go this way and to jump to the next level.
That's fantastic. So some of the hard reasons you mentioned, market fragmentation, the VC that's really evolved over the last couple of years.
I think so.
So what are some of the soft reasons that you alluded to?
As I said, I think there are some soft reasons due to the business attitude.
Yeah.
It's clear that I work a lot in some investment committee for some VCs, and I see sometimes we have a good idea.
Right. Yeah.
But the good idea is not enough.
It's not,
you need a good team, and you need a good go-to-market.
Yeah.
So it seems sometimes that, especially in France, we have very good engineers, very well trained, and most of them, of course, are bought, if I dare to say, by American companies.
Course, yeah.
But and we have a lot of startups who have been bought by American companies, in fact. That's not enough. You need to really think business. And I do believe more and more that dual tracks of training, dual tracks of capacity to have engineers, but also business and marketing, which are pushed by all the schools in France, is a very good attitude too. And also to have an international exposure. So if I compare my time, where it was, I had the chance to go to the US during my studies, but they were not pushed for that. Now all the schools, business schools or engineering schools, they say you need to go 1 year out of France, because I think it gives a better understanding if you want really to create this type of startups.
Yeah, I think it's really an eye-opener to go abroad and to see other markets and see the level of competitiveness and the way people do business there. I think what you just mentioned is really interesting, and I'd like to get your opinion on another thing that struck me as I moved to France. So I'm Dutch, I lived in the US, and I noticed that in the US, for example, like a lot of the startup founders, they were tech guys.
Yeah.
Right? They were coders, they were hackers, and they were sort of put on a pedestal because they could produce product, right? And when I came to France, it was about 5-6 years ago when I was an entrepreneur there, there was not that many of them. Like most of the entrepreneurial types at the time, they seemed like people with a business profile, looking for people to implement their idea. And it always struck me as really weird.
No, but you're right. You're right. And again, I don't know why.
Yeah, strange.
For me, it's a soft reason, so it's really difficult. It's difficult to find a solution to. But I don't know. But you're right that many entrepreneurs in the US are not American.
Are also not American. Yeah, absolutely.
Many of them are in fact coming from other countries, and in fact they create in the US where they find the skills, but the environment, the ecosystem, which help them to accelerate their growth. So that's why I do believe that Europe has something to do to help to create the ecosystem technically, but also on the business side, and I do believe even politically, to push for innovation.
Right. Yeah.
And really, I think I'm optimistic because I don't see real valuable reason why Europe should not be successful. We have very good engineers, we have very good businessmen, we have capacity to raise money, we have a strong market, even so it was, and I forgot in the hard market that it's unfortunately this market, European market, was a little bit less active or less growing than China, for example. But why? Proximity, we are in the middle of Asia and the US. We have Africa, which is only a very interesting potentially market long term. So we have a good knowledge of that. So for me, there is no odd reasons why Europe should not be in the race. And I think the political, I would say, push is key. So I'm very happy that the French government, but I know that in Germany also they are pushing a lot. In Berlin there is a very active community in the startups. And I think it's very important that we push that. And also everything which is around the VCs, and all the initiatives are very important to really to create this momentum. And we have the proof that it's possible.
That it's possible,
Not maybe, we have a lot of work to do still, so it's not really where the level we should, we are much more ambitious, but we should be much more numerous. I mean, we should have dozens of unicorns.
Do you feel this ambition is emerging now amongst European entrepreneurs? Because one might argue that was lacking even like 5 years ago, that this ambition to strive to become a global tech leader.
Oh no, I mean, I think it's changing. Octave had always this ambition to be a tech leader. And he always has a sort of vision long term. He's not there to make money, he's to make something more. Of course, because he believes that, and he's pushing what he has called the concept of virtual European GAFAM, creating an ecosystem of big scale-up companies, not tied by equity, but tied by the fact they want to create something which will be an alternative to the US or Chinese potential hegemony. And so, and I shared a lot with some young entrepreneurs, and I do believe also they share the fact that they need to see long term. It's not a 2 years issue. It's a 20 years, 50 years. It's to do something on the market, on the not obviously financial market, but on the real life market. How it might impact on that, and I think it's moving. I see more and more some startups, entrepreneurs who are really willing to do something which is very long term. So that's why I'm optimistic.
Well, it is long term. To give our listeners a sense of scale, OVH isn't an overnight success, right?
No, it's a 20 years old. We just we have a 20 years, and started alone, like the Silicon Valley type of. He was alone, one employee, and he started with zero money. And he was a Polish refugee coming from Poland.
Beautiful success story.
And he in fact, he created this company. He was still in the school, and So and it's obviously outstanding adventure. But it's not the only one, and that's Octave. What Octave is saying every time. He says that why not doing that in other domains and create this European virtual GAFAM.
Well, let's be optimistic, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is a glass half full.
Always half full.
Always half full.
Yeah,
so we need to see that. And again, I don't see why we cannot be successful.
I love it.
It's in our head.
It's all up here.
It's a question of will.
That's where it starts.
Yeah.
So we're recording this here in Singapore, Southeast Asia. Tell us a little bit about the importance of the market here for your company.
In fact, there is three things I would like to mention about Asia. The first one is very important for our European customers. They are worldwide customers. They want to have access, and clearly they need to expand their cloud capacity because of some technical, some go-to-market approach, latency issues. And so we have a strong base in Europe. They are addressing the North American market, but they're addressing more and more the Asian market. So we need to address that. The second is what we call the digital native, very, very active in Asia. And we believe we have compelling solutions to propose them. And that's reason there is no reason why we should not try to win a market share there. The third one is also because we do believe that part of innovation will be in Asia. Many inventions, innovations now are in Asia, and so we want to be also close to this market to understand what are the trends. US were supposed to be a little bit the center of innovation. It's not anymore the case. It's much more diverse. We have Europe, US, and Asia. And if you're not close to this market, you don't understand long term what are the technology trends, but even the market trends. So that's the reason why we decided to invest. We have 2 data centers today in Asia, one in Sydney in Australia and one in Singapore. And we are recruiting, and we have nearly 100 people now in Asia.
Oh wow, fantastic.
And the hub is in Singapore. We have another hub in Australia and also a big hub in India. And we are doing R&D, marketing, sales, but also support for all the Asian.
So you're doing R&D region as well here, right?
That's we have a R&D team in Bangalore.
Right, that's fantastic. A fantastic thing to emphasize, I find, because sometimes people still back in Europe, they think, oh, Asia is just for sales and just for expansion. That's definitely no longer true.
No, it's not. It's not. For us, actually, it's not our position. Our position is that Asia, as I was mentioning, is more and more innovative. Is more and more. It was already, but is a very innovative market, and therefore you need to be there. And part of our R&D is in Bangalore. We have more than. In fact, we are going to reach 70 people in R&D in Bangalore, and we'll be above 100 people in total in Asia.
Oh wow, fantastic! It's so competitive here, right? I think that's also what you said about innovation. From Europe, it seems like Southeast Asia is a faraway place. For founders that haven't visited the region or haven't visited in a long time, it can be hard to realize how dynamic it has now become, right? And if you visit, like last week marked the Singapore FinTech Festival, so we talked to many companies that came here for the first time from France, and for them it was really an eye-opener to see the amount of innovation, the companies, the startups coming out of the region, like doing all kinds of advanced AI research, data analytics for fintech. And it was really for them an eye-opener and made them realize, okay, wow, this is not the Asia I thought it was, right?
But what you say me is a little bit pitiful. I thought it was already taken for granted. For me, Asia is, I mean, it's not by surprise that you have some economy at 2-digit growth for the next 20 years. So if you discovered only now that it's a very dynamic and innovative market, wow, I hope it's not too late. I'm optimistic, but I hope it's not. I don't want. If I take what you're saying, I'm becoming pessimistic, which is not at all what I would like to. I'm very optimistic.
So could you talk about this competitiveness here in the region, and maybe compare it to the European market, because it is very competitive here, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the cloud, we are in a worldwide market. Right. So it's a global market. So I will not say that in Asian market is more competitive than European or American market. I mean, honestly, products are global. Players are more. There are local players, regional players, and global players.
And you're a global player.
And we have in all the 3 major regions the same, I think, level of intensity of competitive. I think in other domains, I think Asia is only sometimes even more competitive than we can see in Europe or in Singapore is an example of a very, very, very competitive market. So for our activity, I mean, it's the same intensity, very, very aggressive, competitive, innovative, short-term capacity of cycle of innovation. So it's similar because the capacity to deploy the products worldwide now is an absolute necessity for all our players, the players in the market. So I will not mention this is more competitive. It's very equivalent. It's but we need to be there, and we will be there.
Do you have any, before we wrap this up, do you have any message you'd like to convey to people watching this who are running a startup, right? Who have this ambition to become a global tech player?
You know, advice, you should never listen to them.
Fantastic, I love it. I love it. I think that's honestly, I think that's probably the best advice, right?
That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no,
I
it's a
really
pleasure.
appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank
I
you
think
very
it was
much.
really great. Lots of great insights here. And well, thank you very much. And
Thank
enjoy
you.
your time here in Singapore.
I will. Thanks a lot.